That's fine. Hi, everybody.
Why am I searching? Because you have it in your
Yes. Good evening, everyone. There's seats up front here for anyone that in the back that can't find a seat. We welcome you to the Tri-State Council July meeting, and this is our first in-person meeting since March of last year. So it's unbelievable. So thank you all for joining us, and it's nice to see people, and it's nice to see that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. I'll kick it off here. I do just want folks to know we do have a sign-up sheet, but if someone realizes that they want to speak, if you didn't sign up, you of course can speak, okay? So saying that, I would ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. As I said, Rick, if you want to grab a seat, if there's not a seat back there, but all right, cool. Mara, yes, Councilmember Gully. Oh yeah, Rick, you're welcome to join us up here. Mara?
Councilmember Gully.
Here.
Councilmember Ash McPherson is absent. Councilmember Steele.
Present.
Councilmember Cummings.
Present.
Councilmember Zaluski.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Council President Mantello.
I am here.
We have 6 present, 1 absent.
Awesome. I will take a motion to approve the minutes from the June regular meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as transcribed.
So odd not seeing them on TV. Okay, Councilmember Zaluski motions. Is there a second?
A second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. Discussion on the approval of minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Presentation of the agenda. We have a number of ordinances, and we have 3 resolutions. They all passed the finance meeting in June. The public forum, we'll get right to it. We have about 17 folks who are signed up, and the first one would be Leo Bashinger. I apologize if I ripped that apart. Now, for the regular meeting, she do have 10 minutes, but because we have so many folks, I Laura, do we maybe want to move it to the side?
I don't know, we turned it on earlier today,
Yeah.
it was fine. I don't know.
Everybody?
Plug your ears.
Okay, we're going to test it. All right.
can hear you.
Is that working?
Perfect. Awesome. Sorry about that, folks. If you had any wax, it's out now. Saying that though, so we do have about 17 people, and that's without probably some people who would like to pop up and speak. So I would just ask for folks, if you could condense it a little, that'd be great. But you do have 10 minutes, and Leo, thank you for joining us. Additionally, at the podium, there are wipes. So after you speak, if you'd like to just clean the mic and throw the wipe in the garbage can that Mara has put on the side, that'd be great. Okay, take it away, Leo, and thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the time. I promise I will be brief. I want to thank also the public that came here today to speak on agenda items. We really appreciate that. We appreciate the patience of everybody, so we don't want to take up too much time. We came here to bring some things into the record and say a couple of things on the development project at 1011 2nd Avenue. I'm a member of the Friends of the Mexican Tuk. I also want to thank you for your taking time to listen to the constituency. In this context, on the lead agency issue, I just wanted to point out that as the lead agency has to be neutral, it's really the council and the public loses some important access to their representatives, as you can't advocate for your constituents if you should become lead agency. However, the main point I want to speak today is about the positive declaration and the decision that is coming up that you have to make. We sent you today a letter that we received earlier. I also want to submit that to the record. I will do that after I've finished speaking. In this letter, can you hear me well? Is this okay?
We can hear you great.
Wonderful.
Yep. You do,
can
just so you know, you do have to speak like right into the microphone. The acoustics in here are terrible.
Awesome. Oh, wow, that is loud.
There you go.
So the letter that we are going to submit into the record in the second gives you a lot of points on why a positive declaration is needed for this project. I want to point to one important one, and that comes directly from the developer's application. In my statement, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the developer himself, in his application, tells you that a positive declaration is required. As you know from the submitted application materials, the developer proposes a significant construction project, including foundations and the construction of underground parking garages. The application proposes this construction to take place to a significant extent on important archaeo-sensitive areas. The developer's application also provides you with renderings that show a significant overlap of the construction, the proposed construction, and the archaeo-sensitive areas. I'm not showing that map here today because showing those maps and the specific location of archaeo-sensitive areas is against standard policy to protect those sites. At the same time, so we have this construction on archaeo-sensitive areas. At the same time, the developer's application also tells you that any disturbance of the archaeo-sensitive sites requires further study, specifically a phase 3 data recovery, which has not yet been undertaken. This is established in the recommendations of the Hartgen Archaeological Survey that was attached to the application. On page 2, this offers the main recommendation, that is what is quoted here, and in the very end you see avoidance of the defined site area or additional phase 3 data recovery. So you know there is a significant impact to the site, and you know from seeker that you just need one potential significant impact to warrant a positive declaration. Specifically in paragraph 16.7 C1B of 6 NYCRR paragraph, I mentioned the paragraph, it says the impairment of the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources of any existing community or neighborhood character are all impacts that need to be studied. And so really the application says it right there itself, you need to issue a positive declaration. So we expect that the lead agency, and should you become the lead agency, you will issue a positive declaration. We also would ask that you will provide 90 days for the public to review and provide written comments on the draft scope, as well as to provide for the public input through the use of meetings, exchanges of written material, or other means in order to allow for greater participation. And in this context, that I also want to draw your attention again to the environmental justice policy, CP29, which is written to enhance public participation in environmental justice area. As you know, this area is designated by the DEC as a potential environmental justice area, and as you also know, because a permit, specifically a SPDES permit is required, that policy applies here. So we really also urge that this is taken on as soon as possible. With that, I'm gonna hand over to the next speaker. I just want to enter into the record this tiny display of that information, as well as the letter that we sent today. This letter was signed by the Anthropocene Alliance, Clear Air Coalition of Greater Ravine Coimans, Cultivated Arts Cooperative, 2nd Street Farm, Extinction Rebellion, us, Gilderland Coalition for Responsible Growth, Hudson River Slough Clearwater, the Media Alliance, the Portugal Domain Foundation, Ramapo Lenape Indian Nation, Red Rum Motorcycle Club, River Keeper, Save the Pine Bush, Scenic Hudson, Schaghticoke First Nations, Sierra Club Mohawk Hudson Chapter, TAP Inc. Sorry, I drive through TAP Inc. The Bioreserve, the White Feather Foundation, the Troy Bike Rescue, the Troy DSA, as well as the Waterfall Unity Alliance. And just today we got also this sign on, it's not included here because I just got that email a minute ago, the New York League for Conservation Voters. And then I'm gonna also submit the United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous Peoples, as well as an Indigenous Peoples History of the United States as additional important information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next on the list, we have Sarah Beischinger, and I believe no relation to Leo. Thank you for joining us. Just for the record, you don't have to give your exact address, but the municipality would be great if it's not Troy.
Sure, not a problem. My name is Sarah Bachinger. I am also a co-founder of the Friends of the Mohegan and I am located up in Round Lake, New York.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah, and I am a co-organizer of the Friends of the Mohegan. Should you become lead agency, you will be setting precedent for how seeker is carried out in the city of Troy. After all, this is the first time the City Council would take lead agency on seeker of this kind of scale. With your decisions, you are setting precedent. For this reason, I'd like to speak tonight on two important procedural questions that I want to bring to your consideration. First, I want to talk about the seeker timeline for the determination of significance. As you know, the State Environmental Quality Review Act states that the determination of significance should be made 20 days following the establishment of the lead agency. In this case, that would be July 30th. However, the Planning Commissioner made comments in a recent Times Union article that suggests there might be a delay in the decision about the environmental review process until September. We are concerned that this delay could undermine transparency in the process of information and fact-finding, when there is already a process for fact-finding with strong public participation, and this is the public scoping process in seeker. In light of the many potential significant impacts of this development presented to the Council, a positive declaration determination should be made so that solid and meaningful public input participation through a public scoping process is put in place. Certainly, no investigation and study of potential impacts must be undergone behind closed doors and before this public scoping process has been initiated. Secondly, I would like to speak briefly on the action under review. As the agency that received this application, it is important that you take great care to maintain clarity about what the action is that is under review. the council named in Resolution 35 the action under as submitted by the applicant in his EAF. However, this clarity was lost as Planning Commissioner Strickman misidentified the action under review in the initiating letter sent to all involved agencies on June 10th. The action the Commissioner identifies in this letter does not correspond with the action the applicant submitted for review, nor does it correspond with your Resolution 35. Specifically, the Commissioner incorrectly identified the action as, quote, a request for rezoning, end quote, especially so in the response form provided for the involved agencies. I would like to submit to the record this copy of the response form provided to the involved agencies. Tamara, I'll bring this up. The action that the developer submitted in his EAF for review is not a rezoning. Nor does it regard just one tax parcel. The EAF describes the action as a development project on 2 tax parcels, which the council also correctly identified in Resolution 35. In fact, a review of the rezoning alone and for only one of the 2 affected tax parcels would be a clear case of segmentation. The DEC also determines in their June 15th letter that the action under review is, and I quote, construction of 3 4-story multifamily apartment buildings, multi-use trail, driveway and parking areas, 40-slip boat dock, kayak launch, and stormwater infrastructure on an 11-acre parcel. Subject to this seeker is a development in all its aspects. Any permits and approvals, including the rezoning, site plan review, and all other permits, are issued after the completion of seeker. It is important to provide clarity to all of the involved agencies, as well as the developer and the public. Clarity about the process overall and the action under review. You established this clarity in Resolution 35, and it's in your interest to restore this clarity now that has been lost with the June 10th letter from the Planning Commissioner. Misidentifying the action as merely a rezoning could mislead the involved agencies who believe their response to the June 10th letter regards a review of rezoning request alone. This is a problem as it shapes the questions and concerns they identify to need addressing in this seeker, as well as the response to your intent to act as lead agency. How you proceed and what you decide will set precedents for future developers coming into this city. You might not be for our cause to save 1011 today, but what happens if a developer comes in with a project that you are against after you've completed your service to this city, on this council, and with this precedents already set? Even if you do not support the protection of this 5,000-year-old indigenous site, you should still support the process. As I know that you take your responsibilities as public service seriously, I have high expectations that you will. Thank you.
Thank you for your Thank you, Sarah. Jessica Bennett. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, my name is Jessica Bennett. I'm a small business owner.
Jessica, do you mind? I'm
Really?
so sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
so
it's
apprehensive
terrible.
about this
It's
part.
okay. It's okay.
All
You're
right,
fine.
is this a good?
Perfect?
Okay.
Awesome.
My name is Jessica Bennett, as you know now. I'm a small business owner downtown, and I bought my first home 18 months ago at 1009 2nd Avenue, which is immediately adjacent to the proposed development at 1011 2nd Avenue. And first off, I want to say it's really good to see you all in person. Like, we got here. I know this issue is not on the agenda tonight, and I promise to be brief. I assure you that our intent is not to hijack this meeting, but the seeker calendar is very specific, and this is the last opportunity to address you all as a council before you will all come together to issue a positive or negative declaration. I want to enter into the record and give you a petition signed by 13 of 17 of the property owners that are immediately adjacent to this site. It states essentially that we are all in opposition to the rezoning and development. The remaining 4 property owners are also in opposition, but are not currently in the area, and one is critically ill and unable to sign. The opposition is unanimous throughout the actual neighborhood, which is more extensive than just these 17 properties, but these are the adjacent ones. In going through the neighborhood in the last 2 weeks, I want to share with you some of the concerns that they shared with me. There's concern about the council as lead agency. It's not that anybody thinks that the city council can't or won't do a good job. You could absolutely do a bang-up job and lead seeker competently. But the issue here is that in seeker, the lead agency must remain impartial. Thus the concern, who do we go to with our concerns? Who will advocate on our behalf? At last month's meeting, Councilman Zaleski said that he's never received more mail or reaching out from constituents on this issue. And as lead agency, you must remain impartial. So who will represent the interest of these concerned citizens? Neighbors have also expressed concerns as to why this didn't initially go in front of the zoning board. But now that seeker is started, there's concern as to why this isn't being handled by the Planning Commission. Once again, the council as a group of people could absolutely lead seeker, but as our elected representatives, this becomes a conflict of interest. It's impossible to impartially lead this review and also advocate on behalf of your constituents. We are very worried that our concerns will go unheard. There is still time. There are 2 more days in the seeker clock. In fact, for another body, potentially and appropriately maybe, the Planning Commission, not committee, to state their intent to lead, giving you all the freedom to advocate for your people who elected you in your district. In the next 22 days, the lead agency must issue a determination of significance. And I come here on behalf of this neighborhood directly affected by this project to ask for a positive declaration. From the DEC, what it says is, if the lead agency has determined that the proposed action may result in a significant adverse impact and therefore will require a preparation of an environmental impact statement, it must prepare and file a notice of that determination, known as a positive declaration. The positive declaration must be filed and prepared, distributed and published, and it must state how and when scoping will be conducted. It's crystal clear that there is significant potential environmental impact from this. The entire site sits on a federal waterway, and the construction of a marina, of which in the seeker application, there are no plans on how this will be built in the project narrative. And this would absolutely potentially interrupt or disrupt an EPA remediation site. The felling of the very last forest on the Hudson in the city of Troy most certainly qualifies as a significant environmental impact, a negative impact. And let me quote the developer's own engineer at a planning meeting, quote, "We will cut down every single tree on this site if they do not get the rezone that they are seeking." And the project narrative clearly shows underground parking, which as this site sits on a huge deposit of shale and bedrock, will require blasting. This is a historic register eligible sensitive archaeology site with over 5,000 documented years of indigenous use. The destruction by blasting is the very definition of a significant negative impact. It's only through a positive declaration that the concerns of the community will be taken into account with the mandatory 90-day scoping period. We're telling you now in no uncertain terms that the community affected by this wants a positive declaration. And here's another way that this could go. There's a fair amount of information that hasn't been given in the EAF, and we certainly all went over this in June at the last city council meeting. The planning commissioner after that said to the Times Union that he plans to push this decision off to the planning committee and not have it voted on until September. I find this very worrisome, and what should not be allowed to happen is that in pushing off a declaration of significance while asking the developer to fill in certain holes in the narrative, i.e. stormwater, the marina and clubhouse plans. We've submitted a list of what's missing for the last meeting, and then issuing a negative declaration once this has been submitted. This must not be allowed to happen because the public is then removed from that process. It's a seeker loophole, essentially, which is why I'm bringing it up now. We're aware of it, we want you to be aware of it, and we do not want this to be the case. The only recourse the community has is an Article 78 lawsuit, and which is not the goal. Transparency, a full scoping process, and a community engagement via a comprehensive seeker plan and a CP29 plan are what we want, and the criteria for a positive declaration is undeniably met. Seeker is the best tool that New York State has to protect its communities, citizens, and natural resources from harm. This land means so much to so many people. Please give it the best chance possible for a fair and thorough environmental review, and when it comes time, please issue a positive declaration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have Stephen Smith. And it states all over your name. Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Anashik, Kishalamokwe, Anashik, Huachi Manadu, Elamiliang, Kakanaki, walk, Mbi, walk, Cash Hung, walk, Dindao, walk, Ni, Ilango Matit, Anushik, 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 Anushik. Ninju Sinzin, Kokos Ramapo, Ninde Linawape, Ramapo, Muncie, Ato. Thank you for welcoming us here. And the words I spoke to you are from the Muncie language, the original language of these lands, and a language that's endangered. Our last first language speaker, I believe, died in the last 10, 20 years, so we're bringing the language back. And the language is very important because it's still reflected in these lands. So Manhattan, that's a word from our language, Muncie language. And I live in the Ramapo Mountains, that area, and so we're connected in many ways, not just through space, but through time as well to these lands. The Mahikanatuck, the river that flows both ways, that's our language for the Hudson River. And the prayer I said was a prayer of thanks. Thanks to our word for the Creator, which is from whose thoughts we arose. Thanks to the Great Spirit, Kawachi Manadu, for giving us the earth, the waters, the wind, fire, and as I said, all our relations. We were kind of joking. Can I see the woodchuck here? Yeah, we were kind of joking about this, but this is their home too. And it's we're in the 6th mass biological extinction event on this planet. And part of the reason is when we enter into development without thinking, this is how we end up in this situation. And I know we don't think about this on a conscious level every day, but that's something we need to ponder as humans, is that we are causing destruction on a massive scale. So we really do need to be conscious of this on all levels of governance. And let's be honest with ourselves, we've had a massive failure in humanity of governance on all levels, from the international, national, state, county, local, because of the destruction of our environment. And so when my friends here told me about this being one of the last forested areas on the river, that got my interest. And then also the Mohawk River and Mahikanatuck coming together, these were natural sacred sites. These are natural places that brought people together. We're reestablishing relations with our Mohawk allies in their language, Gani and Gahaga, people of the Flint. And one of the lessons that they have preserved and and give us is to start off our remarks with things, with the consciousness of things. And that's how we try to bring our minds to one mind, one good mind in a good way. So on that, I really do urge the council to make a positive declaration so we can really examine this matter, see if we can come to one mind, because it appears to me that this is really, I mean, we have developments. What we don't have is respect for the natural world, which is what we really need if we're going to survive as humanity. So I just wanted to thank you for your for having this open space, and looking forward to talking to you later about these matters. So, Anishi, from the Ramapo people, Anishi.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we have Cherie Kammer. You can pull that right out. You can pull it right out, the mic.
I'm going to stand. Thank you.
Here, you can.
Cherie Kammer. I live on ancestral lands of the Mohican in Winskill, right next door to you. I speak on behalf of some of the oldest residents of Troy. The forest on the banks of the river that flows both ways. The forest has the right to live. I was asked to bring this message. This spruce is from my place. Okay. It's up to humans to overcome the human-made forces threatening the forest and all life on Earth. Humans focused on the world we seek can create an economy that values life. Humans can move from a culture of domination over each other and nature to a culture of reverence and mutual respect, where all are valued. From us and them, from being forbidden to speak freely with one another, may we move to we are all us, nature included. Thank you.
Thank you, Cherie. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Brenda Miller. There's an R. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi there.
So this is really kind of amazing moment to me, because we're here for the first time after not being together for so long. And we're here for such an important issue for the city of Troy that transcends politics. I made a sign because I participated in the comprehensive plan, right? And what was so critical that we learned in the comprehensive plan is that beyond politics, beyond every walk of life, we all agreed that the Hudson River is our greatest resource, that the history of Troy is our greatest resource. And I participated in good faith in the comprehensive plan, right? And so I just want to say who I am. I've been a professor at RPI for 30 years, so I've really watched Troy grow. I'm also the Arts and Education Coordinator at Media Alliance. I've worked with thousands of people who have researched and organized and dedicated their lives to making this city of Troy great and to learning about the incredible legacy, the environmental legacy, the economic legacy, the social legacy of the city of Troy, which makes us so great. I also am blessed to have a house straight across from People's Island, so I am actually one of the neighbors of this sacred site. And I have a canoe, I have a kayak, and I've taken countless journeys to the shore of this forest. You have to be really careful there because it's so shallow. That's why they called it Waterford, right? You could ford the river there. It is an environmental treasure. It's like a wonder of the world there, where the Hudson River and the Mohawk River intersect. We've worked a lot with the DEC to understand the legacy of the Hudson River and how important it is for our city of Troy. And the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act requires that all state and local government agencies consider the environmental impacts equally with social and economic factors during discretionary decision-making. This means these agencies must assess the environmental significance of all actions they have discretion to approve, fund, or directly undertake. And so with that, I and everyone in this room ask you as our representatives and thank you for supporting the comprehensive plan and supporting a positive declaration. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Next, we have Adam Fisher. Hi, Adam. You can adjust that mic and, yep.
Clean right here.
Yep. Should be able to pull it right out. Yep. Thank you very much.
Make simple things hard.
There's a garbage can right on this side. Thank you.
Now, I can find my, there we go. We had it here. Get to my notes. Can't find it. Maybe we can have another speaker come up till I find my
Sure.
notes.
No problem.
Thank you.
Mark, Marion?
That's to give him any pressure, but I'm going to waive my opportunity to speak.
You're gonna waive it?
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you. That's okay. Zach Davis. Thank you, Mark.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Zachary Davis. I'm a wildlife scientist. I specifically study biodiversity with a focus on birds. And so I'm here today to talk about 3 billion birds. That's the number of estimated individuals that are missing from 1970 to now. These individual birds are missing primarily due to habitat loss. And this habitat loss has been made possible by city councils and by municipal leaders who don't understand the gravity of the situation that avian species are in right now. These species also are some of the most common birds, and they are being systematically destroyed because of their perceived commonness. You technically don't have to consider these common species during the seeker process, but I ask you to go above and beyond and consider these common species. Consider that migratory connectivity is one of the most important things we can have to protect the species here. Our breeding birds, they move back down to South America, but they require habitat along large rivers such as the Hudson to get to and from their breeding and wintering habitats. And so I ask that you do your due diligence, and during this seeker process, conduct a full life cycle sampling. Do it during the winter. Do it during the migratory season, both in the spring and in the fall. Make sure that the species that you guys are charged to protect can make it from Peoples Island, from the bioreserve, from Schaghticoke State Park, back up into the Adirondacks. By removing this parcel, you will be the first people to destroy the forest along the Hudson River entirely. And so I ask that you do your due diligence while you sample for these avian species. I say that the future, the eyes of future children are upon you, and dare I say, future environmental law scholars. And once again, I ask that you don't be the first people to allow the destruction of the forest along the Hudson River. Thanks.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you. We now have Adam Fisher back. Thank you, Adam.
I deleted it accidentally. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and my family from a personal point of view, and here to support and encourage that a positive declaration be made on the project at 1011 2nd Avenue. It directly impacts me. Why? Well, 30 years ago I bought the property there because of the woods. It gave me a certain amount of privacy from my neighbors, and 1/3 of my property borders the northern edge of the said developing area. So I would hate to lose that park-like surrounding after 30 years of living there, and 50 years ago I was playing there as a child. So I would hate to lose that, especially in my retirement years now. So the opportunity, I think, to turn this whole thing around into a positive outcome would be up to you. Is it possible? I'd like to ask you a question. Anyone can, if you can answer this. Can you, in any way, change the developer's, not plan or project, but their site location from 1011 to that of Burger King and Price Chopper, which is now vacant, and offers all the resources for that development now?
We appreciate the question. During the public forum, we just want to hear from you. So there's no exchange, but I would strongly encourage you to connect with us after the meeting or tomorrow. Okay.
With that said, I'd like to bring up a year and a half ago in the Times Union, this was quoted, I'm reading word for word, and this is the headlines. Update: Troy officials call for redevelopment of Price Chopper site. This is written by Eric Anderson, January 28th, the year 2020. All right, and let me take and quote: Troy officials are proposing redevelopment of the riverfront property on 2nd Avenue in Lansingburg after Price Chopper on Monday announced it would permanently close its store there. Closure, quote, closure of the Lansingburg Price Chopper presents a unique opportunity to improve the Lansingburg commercial district and increase public access to Troy's waterfront, said Stephen Strickland, perhaps you know him, Commissioner of Planning and Development for the City of Troy. Quote, potential conversion of this suburban-style shopping plaza into a walkable urban mixed-use district enhanced by CDTA's bus rapid transit line and other improvements will bring further investment into the Lansingburg area neighborhood. So, with that being said, let's see if we can get back to my other notes. Would work with the developer to change their site location from 1011 2nd Ave to a vacant Burger King and Price Chopper would benefit the residents now and of the city of Troy. And I would like the wooded area to remain left as a natural park for all to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you for joining us, and please connect with us later tomorrow, please. Robert Arnold, I believe.
Waving.
Waving?
Yeah.
All right.
Me too. The next one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Frank Maven. Hi, Frank.
Hi. Hi, good evening, everyone. Glad to see everyone here in absence of Kim. I know she's in a good place, so we're excited about that. So we just want to speak about, well, you know, primarily I'm the hillside up top, but it has extended now and in good measure to the area where we want to speak about this Haskell School being turned into an apartment complex for lower income or whomever may be there. I was asked by numerous people in that area, that is District 2, to just take a pulse of the people down there, and no one's for it. Again, like, no one's for it. What they want there is, I mean, there's numerous apartment buildings and complexes in the Trip and Unity House combined with Northeastern and all these. They just announced the opening of 51 new apartments in the area. All of this coming on. It's a lot with what we have right now. And right now, that area is certainly, the pulse of the people in that area is like, no. I haven't had, I mean, this was just brought upon me within the last week or so. I do work extenuous hours. However, you know, I'm very interested in that and for the people there. And I decided to be a voice for them today. I have, you know, others from the area who might want to stand with me on that. But so no, for the Haskell School being, you know, for more residents, no. However, that community, all of the North Central, would surely like to have a recreational community center type of environment, educational type of setting there, and not just more people, but something that the people that have always have been long time residents there surely deserve and are looking forward to have there. So if in fact that could be, we know that new owner bought that property with all kind of aspirations for, you know, the city of Troy and making it better. However, right now more people is not what that area needs. It'll just congest it even more. But an educational community center, recreational center type of development would certainly be welcome there. It would be embraced by that community. It could probably be staffed by a lot of people in that community, and it would be, you know, it would be well kept. So can we keep that in mind? I know going forward that hassle is going to be there, but the people of that area are certainly not for it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you. All right, next, we have David Banks.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, my name is David Banks. I'm a City of Troy resident and a visiting assistant professor of geography and planning at the University of Albany. And I'll say why I told you that in a second. But you know, first I wanted to say thank you for the $700 or so that you gave me through the Neighborhood Improvement Grant. We've done a lot of great work at 386 First, you know, making everything look nice. It's looking really great. Still owe me a trash can. Let me know whatever I can do to get the trash can. But I really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. You,
my humble apology.
no, okay. You're the trash can.
I'll dig it out tomorrow before I leave.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Now, so I'm going to talk about 1011. Now, I think it's pretty clear that I think a lot of what everyone said is very compassionate and smart stuff. That I get the feeling that maybe you probably knew that, or that there was some. I don't know. It seems like very obvious that this is a natural and cultural heritage site that is like unique and very important. So I was racking my brain about like, maybe there's something that you don't know that sucks because like it goes against your, you know, our own comprehensive plan that we came up with. It's zoned for single use, and in a city our size, and now I'm speaking professionally, right? Geography and planning. A city our size, our age, you know, a piece of contiguous property that is left undeveloped for that long, there's usually a reason. And I'm pretty sure the reason is that it sucks to build there. It's rock, right? It's just rock. And so it is expensive. to build there, and that is, I think a good market indicator of why this has been left undeveloped. Is that it's a bad deal. All right, it's a bad deal for, I think, anyone holding the bag on this development. Time. It really, when it comes to development, right? Like time and whose side it's on is really what matters here. And I mean, if you have 17, right? 17 people, neighbors against it, like that plus environmental review and the cultural heritage. This can be held up in courts for as long as any of these people want it to be, and I think it should be, right? And the thing is that, like, the only reason why anyone with any sense of like what to do with a dollar, right? The only reason they would even consider about it doing now is because housing prices are ridiculous, right? And this is the only period in time where the ROI makes any sense whatsoever, right? Is now when just numbers are off the charts. This is a really weird time to be building in. I think any developer will tell you that, from the cost of cost of materials but most importantly, land itself, where the vast majority of the price tag comes from, is just astronomical right now. So if time is on their side and the prices are ridiculous, right? This is the only very special time where it makes sense to build. Then as soon as the market dips, and really it doesn't even have to go that much, right? What you need to make, like 12% to make this this make sense, right? As an investment, you're going to lose it anyway. I don't understand why Vandenberg just doesn't put some, go buy an ETF. It doesn't make sense to me. But so I just thought, people are invoking their heritage for reasons to not develop this. I thought I could invoke mine as a Jew to tell you it's a bad deal. And so just the fact that you put 240 units on a place that we did lots of planning to show that the impact not only of the physical site itself but all of the roads and utilities that go to it, it doesn't add up. And so that I would really hope that you do yourself a favor, whoever might financially benefit from this, to just not do it. And then the thing that is on the agenda that I did want to talk about is honeybees. There's an agenda item about making it illegal to own bees, or to restrict bee access. And I just don't understand that. Just like the birds, the bees, this is a very difficult conversation. Maybe you're all too old to have birds and bees conversation, but the point of the matter though is that both are absolutely necessary to ecology, and we should be able to keep as much of them as possible. All right, so thank you.
David, I agree, and I'll explain the bee legislation when we get to it. Molly Freeberg. Or is it Freiberg?
Freiberg, yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm a resident of Troy, and I don't have something prepared, but my friend Annie, who's not feeling well today, I'm gonna read her statement. She's also a resident of Troy, Annie Jacobs. So she writes, as a girl, I grew up feeling very different and isolated. I was shy, highly creative, and didn't look like or feel like the kids around me. School was a daily stressor, and there were days in which I did not speak an entire word. On the bus ride home, I felt ashamed and alone. Why couldn't I just make friends and tell jokes and play sports? What was wrong with me? Thankfully, there was a strip of woods and a creek on the edge of my neighborhood. Almost every afternoon, I got off the bus early so that I could walk home through the woods. If it was warm, I took off my shoes and carried them. I climbed trees, walked slowly in the water, studied the birds and plants. My mind and body were deeply soothed by this small piece of nature. My home life was also stressful, and while adolescence was challenging, I cannot imagine what it would have been like without my little forest. Today, I still struggle at times to navigate life's stressors. Because of my childhood woodland and the relationship with nature it gave me, I am confident, strong, and successful. Knowing how much that small bit of woods and water completely changed the course of my life, and with all of the challenges facing our youth today, I ask that we please do all we can to keep this forest along the Hudson as a place of healing for all. So Annie's asking for a positive declaration. Thank you. Thank you, Molly. Thank you, and please let Annie know that we thank her also. Keith, and I apologize, I'm having a very difficult time, from Wine and Skill H. Hunnigan?
Close.
Okay. It's more the handwriting.
Sorry.
That's okay, thank you.
It wasn't intentional.
That's
but thank you for having me. My name is Keith Hirakawa. I am a professor of law, and so the whole environmental legal scholars thing, and forget about it, we're going to have to be talking about this for a while. But I have just a few...
Can you talk over the mic? The mic, they can't hear you in the back.
You sure they want to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. So I had a couple things I wanted to address as matters of process, as procedural matters, and maybe to emphasize some of the great comments we heard today. And the reason I wanted to do that was because at the last hearing, I think I made the mistake of trying to ask for something procedural, and it sort of burned up all my time about this. So, and this is with respect to the Second Avenue development. So, what I wanted to talk about today is sort of the purpose of public hearings as really a public empowerment tool, right? The reason we have public hearings, I mean, if we didn't have them, you would still be doing the work you did. But we do have them so that the public can participate and feel like they're participating in creating communities, right? The communities that they want, and to share what the vision of everybody in the community is. And of course, in the process, with more participation, the idea is that you have more information to make better decisions. The dilemma I'm having, what I wanted to speak to, is the risk of making public participation not about empowering the public. And so there are a couple of things I wanted to point out and then just put on the table so you can think about before the next secret hearing of things that if you want to do them differently, it might be a good idea. So the first one is the way we're proceeding under secret. I think one of the things that has been brought up many times from the public is it's not all that clear what the doggone application is, right? There's been a lot of comments about when are we going to see what the developer's planning on doing with stormwater? When are we going to hear more about whether this is in compliance with the city's 1976 coastal zone management plan? Whether there's going to be some application of the city's urban forest plan and the principles in that. Whether we're going to really take a deep dive and look at the comprehensive plan, right? The fantastic vision that the city put out in the comprehensive plan, and see how this proposal matches up. And that's a little complicated because some of the things that have been brought up by the public in opposition, not in support but in opposition, suggest that there's no good reason that this rezone should be in front of the city council at all. And as one example, the code is incredibly clear that in a planned development district, overall, the maximum density is 8 units per acre. Right? There's nothing clearer in the code than that statement. And so this idea of putting 240 units on 9.5 acres doesn't seem to comply with that. Or another way of saying that is, this is the wrong zone. Right? This zoning application should not be before you because what they want is not allowed in that district. These are the kinds of things that the public should be aware of, that the council should lead by recognizing that if something is against the law and we're processing the application anyway, we're all participating for something that shouldn't be here at all. So that's something we're thinking. With that, pointing out how many variances that the applicant has asked for in the rezone application is really a complicated thing too, right? If we're asking for a new zone and then admitting that there's no way we can comply with the new zone, maybe it's just the wrong zone. So if we're doing a secret analysis to look at the environmental impacts of something that is patently not lawful under your code, it doesn't seem like a good way to spend our time. And it also, right back to the theme, it really undermines the idea of empowering the public through public participation. So my sense about it is some leadership to recognize that the application should, at least on its face, comply with the code before it's processed under SECRA, would empower the community, would represent what public participation is really about. And that's just the planned development district, right? And the stormwater stuff. We want to know when they're going to put together the plans for the boat launch and the marina and all the other information we need to look at the environmental impacts. If we don't have that, then not too surprisingly, it's going to be awfully tough for the public to comment on this application under SECRA when we're not really sure what the application is about. So that's one thing I think that we should think about. Another, and this is another process matter, and this is the issue I raised at the last hearing. I don't want to take too much time, I apologize for this, but I do think it's a good idea to have public commenting on the matter during the time the council's considering the matter. And there are a couple of reasons for that, or in other words, right, so the whole public commenting in the public comment period, and then later the issue of the development application being raised, and it becomes a conversation between the council and the applicant, which is appropriate. But that's the time when you're thinking about that application, and that's the time when meaningful public participation can take place. And this is the way an awful lot of local governments do it. Not so that we can get into fights about it, but so that we close off a different matter, and now we open up the matter we're all going to talk about, and the public can meaningfully get into that dialogue. With that, and with SECRA coming up for a threshold determination, the idea of time limits on participation is going to be really complicated. There's an awful lot of evidence, as you know. You're receiving books and reports and UN documents, and you're going to probably see an awful lot more on geology and hydrology, ecology, some avian studies. We're going to talk about ecosystem services, and it's a lot of information. So your time limits, I get it, and people, of course, can write their comments in, but not everybody has that option. So thinking about meaningful participation is a pretty good idea. As to the question about lead agency status, if you want it, obviously you can do it. The arguments in favor of allowing Planning Commission to take the lead on this are not bad. They're pretty good. And I know at the last hearing there was some offense taken with the notion that maybe somebody was saying that the council members weren't smart. I didn't really understand that. But I want to point out that that's not what this is about, right? Evaluating sophisticated evidence on environmental impacts from a major development project is something that people get advanced degrees for and have a lot of experience in. In fact, when we hire people to do environmental impact review, we don't ask them if they're smart. We ask them how many reviews they've done, how many publications they have, how much experience they have looking at the complicated issues, right? Whether it's, we heard about, this issue of the loss of songbirds, that's a tough one. There's no way I would take on that project myself. I would hire somebody because that's what they do for a living. And the reason this is important is we don't want to treat SECRA like it doesn't matter, right? We heard earlier, let's take the politics out of a case like this. By thinking that smart enough without a background is enough to do a good job, we're risking just throwing SECRA away. But SECRA is, to some people, and me included, is probably the most important environmental law that the state has ever seen. Before we had this law, there was no stopgap. There was no reason to consider environmental impacts from our actions, which is how we got in this place in the first place. So it is important, and it's important to respect that process, and it's important to do everything we can to make sure the best decision is the one that's made. SECRA is an applicable decision. Let's make sure that it's a good one. The last thing, and this, going back, of course, to public participation and empowerment, there are some things on records from past hearings that it would be a meaningful thing if you would correct them. And one of them, for instance, is the Strickman memo about spot zoning that appeared to you before you made your last resolution. That letter that Mr. Strickman wrote was just flat out false, right? He attached a memo from a lawyer, and the Strickman memo says, as you can see from the attached memo, it's been determined that this isn't spot zoning. And if you read the letter, the memo that was attached to Mr. Strickman's statement, that's not what it said. But Mr. Strickman's memo gave the appearance that you sought out legal counsel to make that determination, and it was done. I do encourage you to take a look at that, and I gotta tell you, it is troubling because this issue's been raised. It's troubling that that hasn't been fixed. Now again,
I don't mean to interrupt you. You have about 35 seconds.
That's awesome. Actually, I thought I was way over, so I can finish. And I really do appreciate you taking the time to hear me out on this. But these are little things that are really big things if you're on this side of the vote. If you don't know what you're commenting on, if you're commenting, the difference between commenting in the public comment period and not during the hearing on the matter, you might as well invite us next week to comment when the matter's also not before you, or a month ago. It doesn't matter, right? So allowing the public to meaningfully participate is really what this whole process is about. So I do appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Next, we have Keaney Conley. Hi, Keaney.
Hello.
How are you? You can adjust that. If you want to clean it, don't. I know Maura is happy.
Yeah, I appreciate this, Maura. Definitely keeps my COVID years at bay. So hello, my name is Keaney Conley Wilson. I live on 4th Street in Little Italy, and I am an urban gardener, agricultural educator, and District 5 City Council candidate. I am a member of Troy's Joint Sustainability Task Force on sustainability and climate smart practices in the community planning. This task force has powers that include advising the council and the mayor, as you guys all know. I'm just making sure everyone else knows, on advising the city on sustainability practices. And it's also was formed to help stick to the commitments of the Climate Smart Communities Pledge that recognizes the threat of climate change in our city operations, citizens, and planet, and outlining initial steps that should be taken to mitigate this threat, increase energy efficiency, and build resilience and sustainability in our city. I believe that I was chosen to play a role in this committee because of my experience in sustainability and my credentials. So I have a professional experience with sustainability consulting. I also have an RPA degree in sustainability studies, and I have hands-on experience in community-based organizations, many of which are connected to food, community, and making sure that people have the opportunity to actually engage in their governmental systems. And since my appointment, I've actually expanded my credentials. So I work for I have deepened my urban agricultural hands-on experience, and through my work with the nationally renowned farm in Rensselaer County. I've also served a role on the Diversity and Inclusion Board for the Ag and Markets of the New York State. And I've also supported thousands of people gaining knowledge in how to do best practices for agricultural systems. And one of the topics and trainings that I've done was on honey beekeeping, and I had over 50 farmers from across the country attend, and had 2 very experienced beekeepers teach us all about beekeeping. So I was really surprised when I saw this legislation on honeybees being proposed without me or the entire task force kind of being informed. And this is because we have that knowledge, and we're able to help support that in our experience. So after reading the memo and legislation that you proposed, I'm stuck with the question as how does this solve the issue the residents have expressed, and why are we creating a new committee and advisory board when we already have 2 other committees that are focused on sustainability and code and making sure that everything is working really well. And as someone who has trained farmers in beekeeping, I know you start honeybees in early spring and not in July, and not through the fall or the winter or anything. And so I'm not sure if that was taken into consideration when the legislation was made, but that's what professionals like me know hands-on, like right away. And that's how you do responsible beekeeping. And I'm sure you guys know all the services that bees provide, but let me just reiterate them. So they provide so many services in like a city and ecosystem that they inhabit. They pollinate our flowers, our food, and all these other plants that we want. And you know, as someone who's really invested in sustainability, and I've heard from a lot of constituents that really care about you know, the way that the city looks, having plants, having flowers, like bees are really, really important to ensure that we, especially honeybees, because they're a lot less aggressive than some of the other bees that, and wasps and things like that exist. And not to mention, the bees thrive in urban spaces. There's so much diversity and different kinds of plants that exist in an urban landscape that would not exist in a rural landscape, because many rural farms, not the farm that I work with, but many rural farms are like monocrops, so it's just one species of things, which is not really good for the bees. They produce a lot more honey, a lot more tasty honey when they have a lot of different kinds of bees. So I'm asking the council to vote no and even table this legislation until the Joint Standing Task Force or another committee that is committed to this can review this legislation and have input from responsible beekeepers that we know and trust and have worked in urban spaces. And my goal for this is not to like undermine you or anything like that, but just to make sure that we have the right people focusing on the things that people are experienced in. And also making sure that we're making good use of our time, making good use of the resources and the wealth of knowledge that we have in Troy. We have so many professionals that know so much in the city, and that I think we can really use them to really help us really bring up the city, and that will also help folks feel connected and engaged to the city council. And you know, I hope to be able to provide feedback to you all to address this issue in the way that actually solves the concern, because I read the memo and it seemed like the concern was really about like just like bees and like how they're kind of I can't really speculate too much, but
We'll talk about it when
yeah, but it just wasn't really clear like what exactly the problem was. Was it too many bees? What was really going on? And you know, it doesn't seem like preventing people from starting new beehives, which people really wouldn't be anyways. Like having that moratorium, I don't know why that would really help and support this issue that constituents are having. Yeah, and I just want to make sure that our solution, you know, addresses people's concerns while also promoting community engagement and like harmony and all of that. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And Keaney, we'd be happy to have you from the Sustainability Task Force as part of working with the folks and the beekeepers who will be on that advisory committee to help out with the new regulations and guidance. Absolutely. Dara Silverman.
Hello. Okay. I always get very nervous in front of microphones.
Oh, don't.
But probably like the last time I was up here when I was at my own planning commission hearing, having filed a secret report for my garden, which is currently at 492 2nd Street in South Troy. It's from that space that I conduct a lot of educational, edible gardening and native gardening material and courses for people in this city. So I basically want to talk about my process starting that garden, which involved 2 city hearings and 1 permit, all of which I got. The only thing that I was required to get under the state of New York laws was the permit to build a fence. Everything else was allowable activity in the state of New York. The one thing, let's see, I didn't prepare statements. I'm an off-the-cuff kind of person. So in the state of New York, you don't need any permits to buy or sell produce on land that you own, so long as at least 50% of the produce that you offer is grown by yourself. Things that I spoke about with Steve Streitman before he said, no, you need to go to zoning because, and I quote, all economic activity in the city of Troy takes place inside a building. So I just think that I was, as someone who was coming to this community to do a lot of good work, to invest my time and my money in what was arguably a positive direction, unanimously approved by both commissions, the Zoning Commission and the Planning Commission. Following getting my permit to build a fence, I had 3 stop work orders from code, and on 2 occasions they sent workers that I had hired to come help me home from the job site, which cost me time and money. This project, as I repeat, was approved unanimously in 2 hearings. I had 40 people come out and speak, and not to speak, but to raise their hand in support of the project at the zoning hearing. And so I just think that the time that this city takes to harass people like me, who are here arguably just to contribute, the amount of time it takes to harass people like me really needs to be reflected in the way that you're going to harass other people that come in here. I'm all about the equal city council harassment. If you want, I'm like, if you're gonna come for me, I highly recommend that we come for everybody equally. And I hope to see that in your positive declaration that there will be a significant environmental impact from this study. You've heard from a lot of scientists. I personally study edible food ecologies and how we're all going to survive on this planet, you know, like your children, not mine, I'm not really doing that, but there's just so much that I think that I, having done this work for over 10 years, really understand that I don't think this body necessarily could understand without going through that extensive process. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about the amount of time that we're taking to attack people ecologically, and of course I'm going to talk about this beehive moratorium. I don't think it solves the problem that it aims to solve, which is that someone's having a problem with current hives. Like Keaney said, it's the wrong time to establish a hive, so my question is, why are we spending time to talk about this when we could be spending time doing any of the other things that we all agree the city really needs to focus on? So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, George. Okay, would anyone, thank you, Dara, would anyone else like to speak before the public forum is closed? Okay. If you could come up, please, and just state your name and address, that'd be awesome.
Hello, my name is Aiden. My pronouns are they, them, and my last name's Marcos. And I live in Troy, New York, District 5.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a little song, just because sometimes songs work better than words. So the song is by Thich Nhat Hanh and it's called The Two Promises. I vow to develop understanding in order to live peacefully with people, animals, plants, and minerals, animals, plants, and minerals. I vow to develop my compassion in order to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals, animals, plants, and minerals. So, I started with that song because I think it's very important to one, get over stage fright, 2, speak about, you know, having compassion and protecting the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. So I'm here to support the positive declaration. I think the thing that brought me here was, you know, thinking about this this land that is sacred to Mohican people, and you know, and all the animals in this forest, the plants and the minerals, you know, these are a part of all of us, and you know, we need the earth to be alive and thrive. I've heard lots of organizers in Troy speak about the abandoned buildings. I love the idea of spending our budget to fix these buildings up instead of building more buildings on sacred land. And I think that the environmental effects will harm all of us, and so I do support the positive declaration, and I also oppose the bee moratorium. For a job one summer, I was a canvasser for an organization working to protect bees. They're so important for our ecosystem, and they pollinate all of our food. I think if we lose bees, we'll lose, in 5 years, the destruction of the earth would be something we would not be able to survive. So, yes, positive declaration. I think that that we do have to have these conversations, like with the Mohican people, and listen to their voices of what they want to see done with this land, because it is their land, and we can at this point honor that and work as a community to respect the land in a way that helps all of us thrive. And I think preserving this forest is really important, and that's my spiel. Thank you so much for listening, and have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker. Hi there.
Hi. Okay. My name is Laura. I live in Albany County, and I used to work in Troy in the 1980s. So that's actually one of the reasons I ended up buying in Albany County, because Troy wasn't very nice back then. But I have to say, since then, I think that Troy has done an amazing job turning itself around. Whatever you've been doing, planning-wise, it works. I hardly ever missed a Troy night out. I really do like what you're doing. So thinking about that, I think about in the spirit of looking forward to a brighter future, which clearly somebody's been working on. I would suggest that our world and future generations will definitely appreciate if you actually protect the sacred spaces and the habitats where fireflies can continue to brighten the night skies. And the reason I think of fireflies is because I know the Golub Corporation has gained a great reputation in the community, partly by sponsoring fireworks. Okay, so I think if you've got a flash in the sky for one moment that's just fireworks, that's nothing compared to what you guys can do. You can actually protect some of this land. You can protect it so that in the future we have fireflies and other things that we need. So I think it's time. You've done some mind shifting to make your city good, and I would encourage you to keep shifting it into the 21st century, where we should not presume that more development is always what's best, that sometimes what's more important is that we recognize that some things deserve our communities and our protection. Thank you.
Anyone else before we close the public forum section. Sure. Hi there.
Hi, everybody. My name is James Krugler. I live at 108 3rd Street in Troy, and I'm here to speak about 1011 2nd. I had some words prepared, but I think almost all of it's been covered at this point, and in the interest of trying to add something new to the conversation, I wanted to I wanted to focus on the fact that I imagine some of you might be thinking at this point that a lot of the discussion that's been brought to you is maybe a little premature in some ways, because well, there's no part of the rezoning request or the SEQR process is on the agenda tonight, and you're 2 days away from becoming the lead agency, so that can change. These are all decisions that you're not making yet, and you maybe necessarily can't make yet. I think at the very least, I'd like to emphasize that, and I think I want to point out that all of this input emphasizes the fact that we are a lot of people here, a lot of people who are not here, a lot of people who live in the city and around the city are very aware of what's going on with this process. We're watching it very closely. We've invested a lot of time and energy into learning how it works so that we know if it's not going properly. We know the schedule for the SEQR process. We know the deadlines that you need to hit if and when you become lead agency. And we know what legal ramifications could come about and have come about in situations where the SEQR process is not carried out correctly or adequately by the lead agency. We know all that stuff. We're thinking about it a lot, and we want to make sure that you're thinking about it a lot. And we're not, I think it's pretty clear at this point, we're not letting slip-ups happen. I and everybody else who's spoken about this topic is in favor of, is not in favor of rezoning, of redevelopment. We understand that this parcel, these two parcels, one in Troy, are a gem for us. And moving forward in a way that protects that gem is tough. It will be tough, and the path ahead is not completely clear. It's much clearer, the path forward for just letting this rezoning take place and the development, probably. And in other cases, it might be easy to kind of get a little sloppy with the process and let things slip through the cracks and hope that it fades from the public attention span. But I just want to make it clear that in this case, that's not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. And we know you know that. I think it's become clear through the back and forth, through all these different meetings, that we know you know that. I think what we were waiting for and hoping that you show in the next couple of months is that you act like you know we know that, if that makes sense. That's all I have. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're all set with the public forum section, okay? Sure.
Hi, how's it going?
You could pull it out. Perfect.
Can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Thank you. You could throw that right on this. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, well, first of all, I apologize for the major remarks. I didn't intend to speak today, so everything's a little bit off the cuff. And second of all, I'm not an expert on any of these things, so take my comments with several grains of salt.
Could we have your name?
My name is Jacob Puritz. I have the pleasure of being represented by Councilperson Cummins in Troy. So.
Council member, council president.
Oh, person. I said person, hopefully.
Oh, cool.
I don't do public speaking much, so my pronunciation is also probably off.
Don't worry about it.
The first comment I'd like to make is, of course, in support of the positive declaration I guess I would, because so many people have come before me and made many good, compelling arguments on the moral and legal rationale for supporting this, I would just comment that the positive declaration may enable several studies that allow us to figure out the full ramifications of this development. That's definitely true. I don't think that it could possibly show the loss that we would have from a child walking past a development, some huge number of buildings without ever knowing that they could have been wandering through a forest. They'll never know that. Many kids will never know that. And as our society progresses, fewer and fewer kids will know that. We have the chance to make sure that that doesn't happen here. Second, in regard to the bees, it seems like a shame to limit the second best insect in our city. Just doesn't make sense. And third, I happen to notice that on the agenda, you're going to discuss a cybersecurity grant, and I just wanted to comment that the last meeting I happened to attend and noticed that part of this grant, but some of it will deal with the encryption of radios for the police, and I just wanted to make sure that there's someone here making a comment that that is not the direction we should be going in. It's eliminating a method that we use to hold police accountable for their actions. It's removing transparency that we desperately need in Troy. But that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jacob. All right, yes.
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Sure can.
All right, well, as has been going on, I promise to be very, very brief. But my name is Matt Boyle. I'm speaking on behalf of myself today, but I'm a member of the climate group Extinction Rebellion, and I am from Schenectady County, which I realize is quite a distance from Troy. I was about nearly a 2-hour commute by bus to get out here. But I think the one thing, besides being part of the capital region, that our two cities share is that we all share the earth and the air that we breathe from it, and the planet that has given us everything and the ability to live. All of which is under threat right now as we are under a climate emergency, regardless of whether or not the governor or the president wants to declare it so. The UN has warned that we have until 2030 at most to act before it is too late, and I think it could actually be even less than that given the UN's history of conservative estimates. And so we are in big danger, and I think destroying the forest at 1011 would simply exacerbate the crisis by, because trees provide oxygen, that's just all the less trees that we would have. And on top of that, by cutting down indigenous land, you will be allowing the continuation of 500 years of colonialism that nearly wiped out the entire indigenous population of this nation and has discriminated against other peoples of color, black, brown, you name it, in a time when the nation is being faced with the challenge of confronting its ugly past. So with that said, I implore the council to allow a positive declaration to ensure that the forest at 1011 is returned to the Mohican people to whom it properly belongs, and that the future of all life on this planet is ensured. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Sarah?
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Steve Davis. I'm a Sierra Club Executive Committee member, and I guess my point in being here is that we're just not a signer to a letter, but we have 4,000 to 5,000 members, and we are encouraging you to have a positive declaration.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And at this time, going once, going twice, going 3 times, I am going to close the public forum. We'll get right to the agenda unless anyone needs a restroom break. I'm all set. We're good? All right. Okay, let's rock and roll. We do have a vacancy list. We do have a vacancy list at the end of our agenda. Did anyone have any questions on that? I'm looking right at you, Councilmember Cummings. If so, I mean, we can always ask after, okay. I would ask our deputy mayor, our comptroller, and our mayor to join us now that there's quite a few seats. Awesome, thank you. Letting.
Council President.
Yep, Councilmember Cummings. Deputy Mayor, I know that Councilmember Cummings had a couple of questions on the vacancy list.
Yeah, just looking for an update. First on, we'll do the easy ones, assistant planner and youth services specialist.
Sorry, I don't have the list in front of me.
All right, assistant planner.
That's CDBG. That is something that they were.
Are they listing it?
Huh?
They're looking for it now?
I don't believe they're actively looking for it. I think there's some. They are actively looking for it.
Great. Youth services specialist.
So we have Megan, who started with us about a month ago. We offered the position to 2 other individuals. They both turned it down for various reasons. They were amazing, and they were very personal issues. So we're actually looking at another candidate right now, but one of them was absolutely amazing, and she just needed some time, so I might hang out for a little bit. She was tremendous.
Okay.
So I just want to put the right people in the right spots.
Good
But
to hear.
Megan is lovely. If you get a chance to meet her, she's up at the Nick. She's glorious.
How long has she been on? What's she been doing so far?
So she's been trying to go around, get used to the art facilities, like, you know what I mean, like know where we are, but she's also met with some people like Kevin Pryor, and we're introducing her to some people. The Rensselaer Plateau, the New York coordinator for her, I connected them together so we can try to do some outside of Troy events as well too. So she's been exploring.
Wonderful. Housing code tech.
Housing Code Tech, I think we hired.
I just got it.
Yeah, Jesse.
Okay. And then I noticed there are 7 firefighters and 8 police officers.
So we are swearing in 7 police officers this week. Firefighters, I believe we just swore in 1. Right, we swore in 1.
Okay, so the deficit is in the firefighters still.
Correct. Well, there's continuous deficit in both of them.
But okay.
These are not as bad as all of me.
That's it that I see here that I need.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I would just say, I took time to stop down to Nick and say hello to Megan and welcome her. We had a great conversation. She had some inspiring ideas that I think if she's able to get the commitment for the city to background these ideas, I think she's gonna do pretty well. She has a very good demeanor.
She's awesome.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. It was the 2 candidates we originally selected, they had very complementary traits. One was a little bit stronger and just, they were both extremely different but very complementary to each other. Megan I liken to like a kindergarten teacher, and all the kids will flock to her. Like, she just has that personality, that just bubbliness and exuberance for her work. Anything else?
No, I will just add, it has something to do with you, Deputy Mayor, but our Deputy Clerk has recently ventured on to a new position, and, you know, maybe Council Members Lusty could update the council. We're in the process of hiring a new Deputy Clerk, and maybe you could, yeah, why not?
We're in the process of hiring a new deputy clerk. That's the update. No, we've conducted interviews. We had several outstanding candidates, but we came together. Actually, it was amazing. There was very little debate. The candidate that we selected really moved those of us that were interviewing the candidates. I performed the reference checks myself, and they were outstanding. And we've already brought him in, probably the first male in the clerk's office in a long time, I think. No, clerks.
Adam's assistant.
So, oh, that's true. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Adam was assistant clerk.
And so
but anyway, he's really just a wonderful, genuine human being. Very hard worker. Came with glowing references with everyone, every life that he touched. People just had incredible things to say about him. I think he'll be a wonderful addition to the clerk's office. And he's already been in training now 1 day, and we'll be back tomorrow because tomorrow is actually Julia's last day. So that's a very sad day for us because she's wonderful, but a good day for her that she's moving on to bigger and better things. And so anyway, we wanted some overlap, and we're up against the gun to get that to happen, and that's good because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the clerk's office. And it's nice to see that our new addition will get some mentoring before Julia takes off. That's the update.
Thank you. The minority, and we get it, we have not been involved in the process, but obviously look forward to meeting the new candidate. All right. So let's move along. We have no local laws. Ordinance 45.
Ordinance amending Chapter 124 of the Troy City Code. Council President Mentolo.
Okay, so the beekeeping legislation. I call it to be or not to be. Yes, do we have a
I will make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Second, Councilmember Gully. I'll now just kind of let you know where it came from, where we hope to go, and hopefully weed out some irresponsible beekeepers who are really giving a bad name to the really good beekeepers out there, and the beekeepers who know what they're talking about and have just so much passion and so much love for the neighborhood and the community. So essentially, I received a call, little did I know about beekeeping at that time. It's about 3 months ago, from a constituent over on the east side of Troy in Councilmember McDermott's district. Councilmember McDermott also visited the site. When the constituent called me and described the scene, I honestly didn't believe that the scene that I saw was in existence here in our city. So unfortunately, her next door neighbor decided to be a beekeeper. It appears that this particular beekeeper is, not super respectful, unfortunately, of that neighborhood, because the scene in that neighborhood was just, it blew me away. And Councilmember McDermott can also vouch in a few minutes, but essentially he had several boxes. The bees, when they swarmed, were not just, it wasn't just honey, but it was some other type of goo coming from the bee on the woman's mailbox, on the woman's house, on the woman's car. She couldn't get this goo off of her car, and it's still there. The mailbox is still has the goo. So fast forward, during that time, I did quite a bit of research, and little did I know about beekeeping at that time. I certainly don't know as much as some folks in this room or folks out there, but what I do know, and doing the research, is that some municipalities, first of all, urban bee farming has become extremely popular, and if you look in your backup, I get it. Bees obviously provide more than just honey, and it's a growing trend. It's huge in terms of improving pollination in the urban setting, and essentially it goes well beyond the honey. Bees can help grow apples, as we heard, pumpkins, strawberries, tomatoes, onions, carrots, eggplant. The list went on and on and on. Following my research, what I did find, because I wanted to find out, okay, what are other municipalities doing? We don't want to ban beekeeping, and that's not what this legislation is calling for in the least. What we want to do is ensure that the irresponsible beekeepers, if that's what you even want to call them, that they are working with their neighbors, and that neighborhoods in our city, especially where buildings and properties are very close to each other, that obviously they both coexist, and that they're working together for the public safety of that neighborhood, for the public health, and that everyone in that neighborhood is working together. Saying that, what I did find, and it was really to my surprise, a couple communities actually ban it outright. And one community, which really surprised me, Ithaca, because they're supposed to be really the millennial community and the growing community, climate-driven community, you name it, but they actually ban it in Ithaca because unfortunately it just wasn't working out, and I actually put a call into Ithaca, but I didn't get a call back. Another community that decided to outright ban it, Geneva. A couple Long Island communities also ban it, but that was not my goal here. My goal, because I talk to responsible beekeepers, I have spoken in Troy to folks who are doing a phenomenal job. They're selling honey, they're working with their neighbors, they put a fence up. But what I did find, and even from the beekeepers, is that we wouldn't have a problem going into it knowing how many bee farms, how many boxes, limits on the feet of how high those bee farms could be, limits maybe from the property line. So I did send my colleagues, and I sent James Rath, who is also very passionate about this in planning. I sent him one that recently came to me because as this legislation moved forward, and it was on Facebook, and there was a lot of misinformation out there, and Carmelo wants to completely ban beekeeping, etc. That is not the intent here. What I'm hoping to do is that essentially the responsible beekeepers figure out with residents, with our planning, with our code, with our sustainability task force to work together to really ensure that neighbors are working with neighbors, and that beekeepers know limitations in terms how many are appropriate. I have heard that in one box you could have 2,000 or 3,000 bees. I've heard in certain boxes 10,000. I also have heard when there's a swarm, it is very intimidating. So two neighbors that don't know a whole lot about bees, or two neighbors that might, have someone allergic in that household, it can be quite frightening. All I'm looking for here is to essentially get everybody on the same page. I have proposed originally a 3 or 4 week moratorium, and within that time, let's crunch it out, get everyone together. I have gotten calls now from up in the Adirondacks, some beekeepers who would like to advise. I have someone here in Troy who is super knowledgeable, a beekeeper. She has a bee farm here in Troy. She's working with her neighbors. They're coexisting. They're getting along great. So seeing that, we want to get everyone at the table. It was recommended, we are doing a citywide zoning update. So it was recommended because right now is not the time, as a constituent stated earlier, to actually begin bee farming. But what I hope to do with the temporary moratorium is potentially this gentleman on the east side who I am hearing is still adding to his bee farm and not being responsible to avoid that scenario. So the moratorium, essentially temporary moratorium until our planning sustainability task force, and I want you a part of that. I want you to represent them. The beekeeper who's come forward, James Rath from planning, code, and obviously a couple of residents who could give input. How many boxes? How many farms? What's the limit? How high? Things that I never knew about that should be undertaking. Additionally, I did not know this, but my other hat, I work in the state senate, and I saw at the end of session an ag and markets bill that actually is now calling for a statewide registry for beekeeping. So I did look at that bill and stating that, so some new measures are going to come in for beekeepers on a statewide level, and ag and markets, it's a program bill. And so long story short, there's a number of new registry and a number of other efforts. They're also talking about a 3.5-mile radius in terms of the department looking at closely monitoring beekeeping. So there's a number of new guidelines for beekeeping because it is a growing trend. So stating that, I support beekeeping wholeheartedly. I do, though, acknowledge in the city of Troy, with homes close to each other, etc., there needs to be a balance. And that's all I'm looking for with this ordinance. Additionally, as I stated, somebody said, well, do you really need the ordinance? And, you know, let's just have an advisory committee or give it to the sustainability committee. Believe me, I've been in government way too long, and I've seen words sometimes and hopes and yes, let's just do this, kind of goes by the wayside. But more importantly, what this legislation will do, it will ensure that the folks who maybe are trying to add a box or whatever, I don't know where they're getting them from, but for folks who are not, let's just say, a responsible beekeeper, to keep them at least with a moratorium, not adding. So what this will do, grandfather everyone, it will maintain all the bee farms that are out there right now, but what it won't allow are new bee farms until we establish really good guidelines with beekeepers, with the residents, and with our planning folks. So I really hope that the council, I am missing one vote tonight, but saying that I am hoping that the council passes this, and like I said, I've learned a lot about this, but this in no way bans beekeeping. And if we get the regulations and guidelines sooner, like in a month and 2 months, because I know James is really working on this from planning, it's 6 months or sooner. So the moratorium is just honestly for the folks who really aren't working with their neighbors, and that moratorium won't be lifted once we get the appropriate guidelines, and then the council will act on those. So that's kind of the history, all that. And Councilmember McDermott, just please, if you could just add what you saw. I don't want to be the only one to describe the scene.
Well, I believe you said most of it, or all of it, but I did visit the area, and when I got out of the car, I was surprised to see how close they were to the road, and the bees were swarming all around the area, and even all the way to the house across the street in her backyard where we were speaking with her. Thank you.
Yep. So if okay, I'll put it to a vote, or is there a discussion or questions? Okay. Oh.
Council President.
Yes.
Yeah, you could have just said you hate bees. No, I'm just kidding. No. Actually, when we discussed this last time, my husband texted me and he said, just so you know, I love bees, and you know, you're making me upset that you're showing hatred for. And he was just kidding, of course, because we all get that. You know, we absolutely need honeybees. They're critical to survival on the planet. You know, the pollination that I think I forget the statistics, but it's like 30% of all plants are pollinated by bees. Wind, of course, accounts for pollination as well. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely get it. I think we all get it that they're very, very important, and no one wants to ban beekeeping in the city of Troy. I think Council President was referencing me when she was talking about, oh, there's people that are saying that why don't we just, get an advisory committee and just, do it and not have the moratorium. And I'm just trying to find a way to get this done quickly. I wish James Rath was actually here tonight, because I'd love to have James talk about it. Is there anyone from the administration that wants to speak to this and why we went from just weeks to the 6 months? I know it has to do with the zoning and coordination, but can you speak a little bit to this? Because 6 months seems like a lot longer than just the 6 weeks that we were talking about.
And remember, it's 6 months or less, but go.
Right, it's up to 6 months, so we are in the middle of, it's not actually a rewrite, it's an actual brand new zoning code. And what some of the initial conversations were about setbacks and land use and all those kinds of stuff, that would automatically be incorporated in zoning code. So instead of writing a code now and then turning around 2 months from now or 3 months from now and changing it again, it's just better to incorporate the whole process. The zoning process of rewriting the zoning code already includes a very public comment period. It also includes input from community members. There's community members that serve on the committee. Also has Registry Planning, who is heading it up, so you have some professionals that have experience and can do the market research on it. And in addition to that, we actually do have urban farming as one of the components that we're looking at, so we can naturally build that into the conversation around that as well too.
So you feel that 6 months is necessary?
Up to
or
6
less.
months. We're actually thinking that it's going to come to you sooner than that, but it gives you the time period, because you have to incorporate public comment period. So if somebody comes back with some public comment that we have to change the code, we have to allow time for that process to occur. And you only have meetings once a month, because you have to adopt the code. So, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone know what the goo is that Council President was talking about?
I don't, maybe Keaney, it definitely wasn't honey.
I would say it's probably bee pollen.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's probably either bee pollen or like some sort of like.
Very healthy for you, by the way.
But yeah, I don't know what, like,
Yeah.
that sounds like a hive that needs to be much bigger. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I like I say, I think it's just a person, I hate to say, who's really not respectful of his neighbors. And then since this has been out, just so the council and folks out there are aware, I have heard from probably 3 or 4 other folks. I did not realize, how trendy this is and how huge it is here in the city of Troy in terms of how many bee farms there actually are. So I'm curious, at the end of the day, hopefully we'll also have the data in terms of the statewide registry to tell us how many folks are out there and what we can do to support your efforts.
Yeah, I think I saw it before. I just want to know what the goo, because you called it goo, and I didn't know what that was. Maybe it's ectoplasm or something. But, okay, so I've talked to Councilperson McDermott about this. I definitely I know the issue. There's no question about it, and it's unfortunate, right? When the city council is presented with legislation where we have to curtail something or temporarily ban something, it's usually because there's some bad actors in the city that kind of ruin it for all the people that are doing good things. It's the same thing with landlord legislation like the landlord registry. If we had all great landlords in the city, we would never have to have legislation that holds landlords accountable. But because we do have some bad landlords, we have to have legislation that addresses that. I wish this was a little bit faster, and I hope that the city can move this along in an expeditious manner so that we can just get the zoning out there and be done with this, because again, it's a bad look for the council to look like we're opposed to beekeeping when we all know that it's actually a good thing for the city. But I represent the district that's adjacent to Councilperson McDermott's district. She's District 6, I'm District 5, and I know that it's affecting residents in our immediate neighborhoods. And I've already talked to my colleagues about this, that I would support this. I I was trying to get it to be a little bit shorter, and like I said, that's why I'm encouraging the city to move fast on it, and let's get this done, and let's utilize the collective knowledge of those people in the city that have experience with this. I know we already have some beekeepers that are going to be on this advisory committee, so that's all positive. So I will support this, but of course I fully recognize the issues and how this looks. But again, it's because we just have one or a few folks in the city that just aren't doing the right thing, and it unfortunately affects everyone else, at least temporarily. Thank you.
Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Zalewski. Councilmember Gali.
We've seen a great increase in urban farming in the city, and a lot of municipalities aren't just used to that growth that quick. And when we see bees and different animals that come in, we have to really kind of relate that to the area that they live in, the density in the area, the proximity of other properties around there, the flow of people through there. And I just, again, this is not about the bees. We all love bees when they're making honey. We might not like them when they sting us, but we like them when they're making honey. This is about just watching over our communities, making sure that we do it in a more proper way so that it doesn't have any interference or any friction with neighbors or any impact to the neighbors around there as best it can be, because you can't tell a bee stay in the yard. So, and I think the amount of hives is important to know. I don't know if anybody out there knows, but I couldn't tell you if a guy had a 20 by 30 yard, how many hives should he have? If he had 100 by 120, how many should you have? We don't know, and these are things that we have to rely on experts to help educate us and teach us in this type of setting, in a municipality, how do we create a safe atmosphere for everybody? This isn't about, we want the bees, we want the urban farming. I think that's the way the future brings us. But we have to do it in a safe way for everybody. So this is nothing against the bees. This is just about the behavior and the anticipation that some people are going to have these bee farms as we move forward. So I am going to support this also, based on the fact that we need to find out what's good and what's not good for the city.
Council President Jones. Councilmember Steele and then Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you. I too visited and I was appalled at what I saw. I have family, beekeepers in the family, and so I'm familiar with the distance that they have between their hives. And so I asked them, are you regulated within your community? And they definitely are. And I think that this resolution accomplished its goal to bring it to the forefront. We now recognize that we need to take some serious action in our community to support responsible beekeeping. I don't see the point in establishing a moratorium. It's not the time that beekeepers are adding to their hives, nor will it be. So it's really, it's unnecessary at this point in time. So I will not be supporting it. I think it sends a very negative message. It's not what Troy's about. So I look forward to the committee accomplishing what we all want, but I can't support a moratorium.
Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree, Councilmember Steele. I guess listening to the issue at hand, what really strikes me is that it may this moratorium. I'm a little concerned this moratorium could even make the situation worse. Should that person be interested in resolving the bad situation that exists there? I think you said it would be relatively easy to move hives within a small area at our last meeting. I don't know if that's still true or not, but I could imagine it being helpful if this person decided to come to the table for them to be able to move some of their hives to someone else in the city that is interested in starting beekeeping in a non-intensive way in this way. Whereas this moratorium would ban that. I don't know technically whether that's possible to do right now. I thought you said it was at our last meeting. So either, and maybe there's, I don't know if you know Keaney, I don't know if that.
No, I don't know off the top.
Can I ask you to come and speak into the mic so the people on YouTube can hear you? Thank you so much.
I guess the core question is whether you have enough off the top of your head without having done any previous research know what it takes to move an already established hive. I know we're supposed to do it in the spring when the bees are mostly dormant.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I could definitely talk to some beekeepers that I know to see if that would be an option, because if we could maybe dilute the amount of bees in that space, maybe it could actually help that issue. But I would have to get back to you guys in the next day or two with that answer.
Can I ask you a question, Keaney?
You were shaking your head, Council President. Do you already know the answer to that question? Did you get a clear answer to that somewhere else?
No, I've been told it's very difficult to move the boxes while they're colonizing.
Colonizing.
Thank you.
Council President, can I
Yes.
ask a question?
Councilmember.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to ask you a
Councilmember
question.
Cummings
All right, when
has
you're done,
the
I'd
floor.
like to ask you a question.
Councilmember Cummings has the floor.
Sure. Well, now that goes back to the this doesn't do anything argument. But I suppose I was wondering if that council might entertain amendment to just make this apply to parcels that already have 2 or more hives on them, so that if a new, it's more explicitly aimed at these folks who may be abusing the situation.
The reason for the moratorium is to not have new ones either. If the moratorium's not in place and we don't have guidelines, then as Councilmember Steele attested, you have no guidelines for that particular beekeeper on how many boxes, how far from the property line, how high, a fence, things of that nature. All I'm looking to do is put it on pause until we get the guidelines, the regs, with the help of the knowledgeable people and the beekeepers. Councilmember Gelly.
I know nothing about bees. And I know nothing about beehives. But I know the moratorium just states that we can't introduce new hives into the area. Now, we know bees won't be there to the spring, but I would think that if a person was gonna set up like a bee farm in an urban area inside of a municipality and they were thinking about doing it, they might get the hives ahead of time and set them up, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
You get it? So
typically, it's like any kind of animal husbandry. You plan for that. Even as a farmer, you plan in the winter when no one's thinking about any of this stuff.
But it's the winter. In the next 6 months, it's going to be winter. What I'm trying to say is, would you think that there could be a possibility that some people could come in and, without having any regulations, could come in and put in, how many boxes they usually have? 3, 4, 5, 6?
I would say typically, on the farm we had 3 last year.
And if they had a small enough lot, even though they think they're bringing in enough hives, they could really impact everybody around them if it was in the wrong area, right? If it was too small, so wouldn't it be different than like having it on an acre lot? It would be different if you had a 25 by 50 lot. But if somebody sets up for a farm now without a moratorium or without a way to just say, hey, let us get this down pat and get the regulations, then people don't have to get bees. It's not about the bees. I told you it's not about bees. It's about where bees live. And they can set those hives up ahead of time. And then, we sit here thinking, well, maybe we should have thought about that before. I don't think it's any harm. I mean, a moratorium, if it's a dead time where people aren't going to buy bees, then it really doesn't hurt us to have it. But it stops a guy from coming in and bringing in the hives and sticking them in the yard in anticipation of what he's going to do. And then how are you going to feel when they buy 6 hives and we go back to them later when this is figured out? We say, hey, you can only have 3 in this area. And then the guy's going to really be, so we're going to have people who are going to be upset on either side of the stick. But I think that when we have to look at the mass of people that live around the beehive person, I'd rather think of the majority of people that live around the beehive than the beehive person, because they also get impacted by that decision. So I understand, we're not trying to control everything. This is just trying to, would you say that's kind of like safe to kind of, at least kind of
Well, it also
see what you
depends
can
on
put in
how
with
often
your
you're
experience?
checking, how often you're clearing out the actual beehive and taking the honey. That is kind of I don't know for sure because I haven't looked at the spot and I'm not a professional beekeeper. I've just taught people about bees, but that it really sounds like more of a maintenance and care kind of thing than the amount of bees, in my opinion. That's what it sounds like. Maybe they need a larger beehive. Maybe if there's a whole bunch of bees in this hive, they're going to be producing a whole lot. This time of season, they're really starting to produce the honey and all of that. That's really what they're doing. They're not really the hive is colony should be already established at this
Right.
point. So at this point, they're, you know,
Producing.
getting the pollen and making honey. So, did that answer your question?
I do. I think it did. I had another one, but I just lost it when you gave me that answer. 'Cause I was
Okay.
trying to listen and think at the same time.
No problem. I do the same thing as well.
Councilmember,
Council President.
are you all set?
I'm done. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you.
Councilmember Zaluski.
Yeah, I like the fact that you said maintenance and care, because I'm gonna go back to the landlord issue. You can't make people care through legislation, right? You can't write legislation that says you must care about your building, or you must care about your beehives, or et cetera. The best we can do is to craft legislation that creates guidelines by which human beings have to abide by, or there's consequences. You hope that when people care, they're actually following the laws that are written and there's no issue. And the people that don't care hopefully get entrapped in the laws that we write so that we say, no, that's not right what you're doing. So right now, we don't have legislation that guides beekeeping in the city. We don't have anything that creates that template by which a caring beekeeper would never be affected by it at all. But someone like the person we're talking about here would be in violation of that, and therefore, you know, we could hold them accountable. Same thing with landlords, right? So this is why I have a problem with like the 6 months, and I just think it's probably too long a period of time, and we really need to expedite this. But I don't have an issue with examining it, having people that are a lot smarter. I don't always say smarter. I know you're like, we're pretty smart, no, but people that are more experienced in this, in this realm than we are, to advise us on it, and so that we can all craft legislation that just makes the most sense for the city. That's where I'm at with it.
Okay, let's put it to a vote. Morris LaBrelle.
Council President.
Councilmember Cummings.
I was wondering if we could change it to 5 months, since that's the end of our term.
That's the what?
End of our term.
End of our term. Well, it does say, I think, on that note, I was going to just state, I am going to do everything humanly possible to get it in place as soon as possible. As you know, my initial legislation said 3 or 4 weeks. And I think, honestly, the administration was like, what? And I get it. So we'll find a better date. I really don't see it being 6 months. Okay. Morris LaBrelle?
Councilmember Conley?
Yes.
Councilmember Steele?
No.
Councilmember Cummings?
No.
Councilmember Zaluski?
Aye.
Councilmember McDermott?
Yes.
Council President Mantello?
Yes.
Ordinance 45 passes, 4 ayes, 2 noes, 1 absence.
All right. To be or not to be? All right. Ordinance
Not to
46.
be.
Let's be quicker.
Ordinance amending the 2021 general fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Councilmember Zaluski motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember McDermott. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Ordinance 46 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 47.
Ordinance transferring funds within the 2021 water fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion.
Motion. Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember Steele. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 47 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 48.
Ordinance amending the capital projects fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion. Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember Steele. Discussion? Monica, we don't need to do this tonight, but maybe at the finance, we could get an update on Siemens, where they are with the 3 different projects. Okay? Thanks. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 48 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 50.
Ordinance transferring funds within the 2021 general fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion. Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Councilmember McDermott. Discussion?
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
I just want to thank the administration again for working with us on redesigning the parking tickets and printing new ones. That will hopefully allow people to pay online. Is there an update on the new, I remember a few months ago we authorized a new payment system or a new contract with the payment system that would also allow for online contestation of tickets. Any update on rolling that out?
Rick? It's a Rick question.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't know the details of it because it's a legal thing for Matt Foley.
Okay.
So they were trying to work on that aspect of it, on the legal aspect of it, so that they could do the virtually, so to speak.
Well, now that we're all getting back in person, it's a good time to do that. But I think it certainly will still be helpful for people, obviously, crowding everyone into City Hall for that process wasn't always the most efficient. But certainly, I would hope that can happen soon so that we can know the status of that when we print the tickets and can include that in the link that is.
They're already printed and I believe they're already here.
Great. Well, never mind that. Hopefully they contain all the relevant information. Thanks again, and look forward to seeing them. Hopefully not my card.
Further discussion?
Do you have a card? Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 50 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
And I figured for a day pass.
Ordinance 51.
Ordinance amending the special revenue budget to accept a New York State Homeland Security grant for the purpose of cybersecurity. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember McDermott. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 51 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 52.
Ordinance amending the 2021 General Capital and Special Grants Fund budget. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I will make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 52 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Ordinance 55, I am withdrawing. Resolution 50. I'm sorry, yes, and I'm withdrawing at the request of Tony Towsey.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is the problem? What is the plan about what's next on this stuff?
Yeah, we talked about that. I'll ask Monica to come up because at least me, I would really love to see a thorough plan where we can really utilize this land bank to its maximum potential. Thanks, Monica.
Yeah, so Steve Strakeman, the mayor, Dylan and I met yesterday, I believe it was, just around this issue, and especially with 36 Dow. Remember I questioned that before because we're trying to look at the parcel from the Jack's junkyard area and then the Dow Street. That's also our block district on our comprehensive plan. There was a lot of conversation about that earlier. So we know that the land bank also has a lot of properties up in that area. We also know Troy Housing Authority is doing some work up in that area. So what we thought we would do is actually, and I did it actually for the land bank. If you remember when I did the land bank, I used to actually plot out an area and show what was city owned, what was land bank owned, what was privately owned, vacant land, and actually plot out a plan for that district so that we can help them bundle their packages together for their applications, to have them have a better application, but also so that we can work together on a shared vision versus just 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s all over the place. And also, they do have to select a developer for their grant application, so they're in the process of examining that RFP as well now. So that gives them time to get a developer on site. Instead of having the buildings first and then bringing the developer on, you'd have the developer on to help you work with the buildings, so. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica.
So, Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
Monica, so are we leaving these properties in a dormant state now, or will they go back onto the auction? Are they going to be some different properties? Is this going to go back out? Or?
I think we're going to try to meet in one of the 20s of this month. So I would like to have that meeting with them then, see if we can kind of come to some kinds of solutions, see what work we can get out of them, and maybe bring them back in August if needed. If not, we'll put them back in the pool.
When you have that meeting, would you allow members of the selection committee that we had to at least hear what they're talking about in that meeting?
Well, I want them to develop the plan first, and then I think we can do a presentation of the plan. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to get a really good understanding of where they're at. I want to have a conversation with them about COVID, you know, where they're at. I looked at their budget. I asked them for a year-to-date versus their budget for this year, because they have some pretty high projections for sales for as part of their revenue, so just to see where they are. So it's more of a checks and balances with them, but also look at their vision too.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, that land bank's near and dear to my heart, so I certainly want to make sure that we keep it going, so.
Definitely. Thanks, Monica. All right, resolution 50.
Bond resolution of the City of Troy, New York, authorizing the issuance of an additional $12,898,111 serial bonds to finance a capital project described in the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second, Councilmember Gully. I did see Chris Whelan here. I know we talked about it very in-depth in the finance, but Chris obviously left. I don't blame him. Did anyone have any questions or discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Resolution 50 passes 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Resolution 52.
Resolution authorizing and ratifying the memorandum of agreement by and between the City of Troy and the Troy Uniformed Firefighters Association, Local 86, IAFF, AFL-CIO. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilmember Steele. Discussion. I just want to congratulate and applaud all the folks, the mayor, the deputy mayor, Andy, and certainly Rick Morrissey, who put this agreement together. It's a long time coming, long overdue, and certainly our firefighters who work tirelessly to keep us safe. Thank you. Further discussion?
Council President,
Yes, Councilmember McDermott.
I will be abstaining from this vote. My husband is a retired Troy firefighter.
Okay, thank you. And further discussion?
Council President.
Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I don't know, the conversations I've had with the fire department, or police department, there's a lot of the individuals that have come here and worked for us that are thinking about moving on to other places where they can, make proper money for the effort and the service that they provide in their position. And I'm glad that all the people I talked to said, well, we gave some, we got some. And what I realize is that's the best of negotiation. I call that the win-win, when everybody walks away with something that they go ahead. So I want to applaud everybody who did take the time to negotiate me this contract out, because it makes sense to support them in proper ways and also to receive some support in proper ways. So you guys did a great job, and I look forward to the next one.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
I will echo what Councilman Gully just said. The handful of firefighters that I've had the opportunity to speak with since this was presented to us have all reacted very positively to the contract. It is a negotiation, it's a back and forth. And to quote, was it Michael Scott on The Office, this is a win-win-win.
Bingo.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the ones you smile about.
One of my favorite shows. That and Parks and Rec.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we know.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Recuse?
Aye.
Resolution 52 passes 5 ayes, 0 noes, 1 abstention.
Okay, our last resolution, 55.
Resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into 3 master service agreements for consulted structural engineering services to be procured pursuant to task orders. Council President Mantello at the request of the administration.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Councilmember Zaluski, is there a second?
I will second.
Second, Councilmember Gully, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution 55 passes, 6 ayes, 0 noes.
Okay, I would like to thank everyone for joining us for our first in-person meeting. Certainly, we had a couple bumps, but I look forward to continue working with all of you, and hopefully we are getting out of this tunnel. So,
Council President.
yes, Councilmember Steele.
For those out there who might be still watching us, if you haven't been vaccinated, please get vaccinated. This is, it's not just about you, it's about all of us.
Yep,
Agreed.
ditto.
Council President?
Yes, Councilmember Zaluski.
I also just want to say it was wonderful to be back in person, thanks to vaccinations, by the way. And I really, really appreciate the residents and attendees that took the time to come here and express their views on a very important issue. I remember the day, I mean, most council meetings, there's only just, actually there's like, what we have left here is about a sprinkling of people, but it was really, really encouraging to see a room full of engaged people and the people that are willing to speak out on an issue. It's really nice to be back and to be a part of that, so thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else? Feel
Council
good
President.
moment? Feel good? Feel
I would
good?
just say that it did feel really good to be around human beings, not stare at that freaking screen for hours. That would put you to sleep.
But
At
you brought a
least
screen
you're
with you.
active, you're engaged. I love it. Thank you.
I was raising my hand a couple times and I realized.
Just in case on the Zoom while we were here.
All right, on that note, good night and see you soon.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Councilmember Zaluski, second. Councilmember Gully, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Look at that.
We stand adjourned.
Just so you know,